welcome to Rock Your Block. I am your host, Tia Young, and we have a special show for you today. As a small business owner, one of the hardest things that we have had to do in our business is our business plan. This is a tool that every business owner must have. But you know, we sometimes procrastinate, we cry, we kick, and we scream, and we continue to put it on the back burner. A business plan is your single most roadmap to success, and many of us are operating every day without a plan at all, or we have something in the file that is totally useless with respect to growing our business. Today, we brought in the heavyweights to teach us about the elements of how to develop a successful business plan. Our two guests are SCORE counselors, which is an acronym for the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. Our first guest has over 40 years of experience as a businessman. He holds an MBA and a BA in English. He has helped organizations envision and meet multi-channel goals in their retail and catalog and direct marketing business areas. Just to name a few, our guest has been on the inside of Sears, National Geographic Catalog, and retail stores, National Wildlife Federation, and Honey Baked Ham. As an insider, he was responsible for general management, strategy development, business operations, product development, financial planning and management, and information technology. Our second guest also has over 40 years of business experience, providing counseling service to clients in both the federal government and commercial sectors. This includes over 25 years in the IT service management field. He currently holds the highest IT certification in this area as an ITIL expert. He retired from Gartner Consulting, where he was a subject matter expert in process engineering and service management. His business experience includes over 15 years helping a small consulting firm grow from 12 employees to over 150 employees. Our second guest has also served in the U.S. Coast Guard with tours of duty in Vietnam and in the Office of Boating Safety. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ed Coleman and Mr. Joe Clarke to Rock Your Block. Hello.
Pleasure
How
to
are
be
you
here. Doing wonderful.
Good. That's great. Thank you so much for braving the traffic from DC to here. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Good. Well, we're going to get started. We have tons of questions, so we're going to get started with Ed.
Okay.
What is the purpose of a business plan?
Well, really, the business plan is your roadmap. If you think about it, if you're a new business, it's the key to determining the feasibility for your idea. If you're an ongoing business, it's a great way to check your business, revalue your business, and create an opportunity to capitalize on new ideas. Really, the business plan, if you think about it, helps you get organized. It keeps you focused. It allows you and encourages you to set SMART goals, things that are specific, that are measurable, that are actionable, that are realistic, and very definitely time-bound, so that you can fulfill your business objectives within a clear time frame. It enhances your marketing knowledge. If you go through the business format, as an example that we talk about at SCORE, you do a deep dive into the marketplace itself, a deep dive into who your customer is, into who your competition is, what the opportunity areas are for your businesses, and it allows you to assess the strengths and weaknesses. It also helps you identify the risk points and gives you the opportunity to plan to mitigate or minimize the amount of risk associated with your plan. And in many cases, it's the tool that is used that you can raise money with investors, with bankers, even things as simple as going and getting a lease. They're going to want to see a business plan.
Right. Well, you know, I'm a small business owner, and I mean, doing that business plan has been the hardest thing for me. I mean, we're still working on it. And I gave some of the reasons that I think that small businesses, you know, don't, I don't know if saying they don't take it seriously is the right term or not, but for somehow they don't do it. So, what do you think? What do you think, Joe, as the reason
Well,
why?
I think a big thing we want to differentiate is between the actual document that you have to produce. Now, if you have a gatekeeper, a landlord or lender that says, show me your business plan, then you have to produce that document. But more importantly than that document is the thought process that you go through internally to try to understand what are your game plans for your business, what do you intend to accomplish, and putting that together in a structured way that you can take actions on. Now that thought process is really the critical element. The document is less important, and every business needs to go through the thought process. You should document it because you will not remember it from year to year or month to month, and you need to understand what those goals are so you can refresh that and keep making sure you're being relevant.
Right, right.
Often we find businesses where the client comes in and, well, I have it in my head. And what we really encourage them to do is get it on paper for the reasons that Joe mentioned. But very importantly, as they go through that process, and it is an iterative process, it's not just one and done. But we really encourage people to go through that process, to refine it, to identify where the gaps are so that they can think through and successfully either develop their business or grow their business.
Right. You're exactly right, because I can remember telling the banker once, I have it all in my head. But actually, all I really had in my head was just a concept, a general concept. I didn't have all those pieces that are needed.
Well, it's one of the things that we find is before a client comes to us, they'll often have read something and there's these, my business plan has to be 60 pages or some example like that.
That's
and
frightening.
really, it's frightening.
That's
and
frightening.
what we really say is the business plan has to be relevant to you and your business. It has to get down your thoughts and ideas, and it has to help you think through those ideas so you address the critical elements and understand the business so that you have the opportunity to be successful.
Good. I think that brings us into our next question. Joe, Ed, what would you consider to be the key elements in putting a business plan together, developing that business plan?
Well, in a simple few statements, one is first of all, is to create an overview. What business are you in? Who are the customers that you're serving? What's the product or service that you're offering? And really be able to clearly articulate what it is that you do. What need is your product fulfilling? Or your service. Anytime I use product, I'm using the two together. What need is your product fulfilling, or what problem does it solve, and who does it solve it for? That translates into what we call a value proposition. It makes you think through what is it that is going to make a customer want to buy your product. One of the examples I love to use in describing a business, a value proposition, is Michelin tires.
Okay.
And the reason a lot of people, when you ask that question, what's a great value proposition, and you say Michelin, what is Michelin selling? Their value proposition is we're the safest tire on the road. We're putting your family in that cocoon of safety from that big rubber man that shows up in their commercial. And that really clearly articulates for people the value proposition. Next is the market analysis. Real clear and deep understanding of the business you're in. Are you selling to businesses or are you selling to consumers? They're very different markets.
Yeah.
Who's your competition? Who's your customer? What does your customer look like? And you go through that market analysis so that you look at their demographics and their psychographics so that you can ensure that your marketing message and your product is fulfilling, that there's a match between your target audience and what you're selling. Competitive analysis. We like to encourage our clients to do a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Understand what your competition does very well. Understand where their weaknesses are. Where are the gaps that you can create opportunities through? How does your business stack up against the competition in their price, in their promotion, in the place that they sell, in the products that they have, so that you can assess and refine your product and your plan accordingly. And then the plan itself. What's your overarching strategy to reach your customers, to create awareness for your product or service in the marketplace, and using that then to project your sales, which feeds your financial plan. Another key component is your infrastructure. And then finally, you wrap it all up into the financial package and assess the viability of your business by creating metrics, by creating a financial forecast, and putting in place the necessary elements to track it. So in a nutshell, it really is an overview, it's a market analysis, it's a competitive analysis, it's the marketing plan, infrastructure definition, and financial structure.
So, Joe, I would ask you, okay, that's a mouthful, what you just said. That's a lot.
Sorry about that.
So if I'm a small business owner and I'm trying to run my business, maybe I wasn't smart enough to come to SCORE first, and I'm already in it. I'm already, run. How? I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
So what would you say?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind, and many people think of this as if they're trying to change the tire on a car going 60 miles an hour. And they are running to keep their business moving, they're trying to meet all these goals, and yet at the same time they have to start doing some of this basic planning to understand which direction they should be going, how they should be doing things. A critical part of this is to get the direction, to find out where you're aiming and what are the goals that you're trying to obtain. Until you've done that, you can almost go in any direction, it doesn't matter. You have to find out where your goal is and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this business to decide, are you on track or not? So that's why it's critical, even in the midst of all the chaos of running a business, to take some time and think through, at least at the 30,000-foot level, what it is that you're trying to do. As you go into the plan, you'll delve down into lower levels of detail, and you may get down to the treetops. But you will at some point come up with more of the details. They can wait. Get the high level first to make sure you're pointing in the right direction.
Okay, very good. Well, we are going to take a short station break, and we will return real soon. Don't touch that dial.
We cannot approve the loan until your wife goes back to work. I'm sorry.
Housing discrimination isn't always obvious or straightforward, but it is against the law. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, protects your rights to equal opportunity in housing.
If you've experienced housing discrimination, HUD can help. They can pursue compensation for your injuries and protect your equal opportunity to housing free of discrimination.
Thank you for joining us on Rock Your Block. Our special guests today from SCORE are Mr. Joe Clarke and Mr. Ed Coleman. Prior to the break, we were about to talk about some of the primary benefits of developing a business plan. So Ed, could you lead us on that discussion?
Sure. The most important benefit that I find is that you're creating a roadmap. It really lays out the details of your business to guide your business decisions, a very important element of it. It sets up and structures monitoring, puts in place key performance indicators so you can understand how your business is operating and where it's within what you expect or specified as your expectations for the business. It gives you an ongoing assessment of your customer as well as your competition so that it causes you to continue to be learning and be a student of the marketplace that you're operating in. You get an objective view of the marketplace and the trends. By going back in and studying the customer and the competition, you determine what the trends are. How does your business stack up and how prepared is it for the trends? And then it validates your vision and defines your direction for the future. That to me would be the high level approach to it. I like Yogi Berra's comment when I think about responding to that question, the great philosopher that he is. And that is if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. So that's probably solving that problem is the biggest portion of the value of a business plan.
I like that quote too. So, Joe, let's move to you a little bit here. Many people say that they don't have an accounting background, and I mean, I can certainly identify with that. Do they really have to understand all of those financial statements to be successful in business? What would you tell us on that, Ian?
Well, I have a number of customers that come in and they say, well, I ask them, how are they doing? How is their business? Is it profitable? And their answer is, I don't know yet. I'll have to talk to my accountant to find out. And that's a very bad position to be in. You really need to be finding out what's happening to your business and not flying blind. Now, I'm a perfect example of what I'm recommending is that I don't have any qualifications in accounting. I'm not a CPA. But what I have learned is how to use the data that's in the accounting system to make informed business decisions. And that's what people really need. You don't have to understand all the terminology and all of the different statements, but there are key things that you should be focusing on, and you need to understand those concepts because that's what's going to enable you to make decisions for your business that keep you working toward your goal.
What are the, say, maybe three or four
Well,
critical
there are-
financial
right.
statements that?
There are three of them.
Three,
and
okay.
The first one is the balance sheet. And what that does is says how much is the business worth? What's the net worth of the business? So it's going to say things, how much do you own? How much do you owe? And then what is left over is your equity and what the net worth of the business is. So that's the first one. What resources are you committing to your business? The second one is the profit and loss or the income statement. And what that does, it measures how much is coming in sales, what are the expenses for creating those sales, and what is your bottom line? What is your profit or loss that you've made during that period of time? The third one is the one that's probably most important for most small businesses is the cash flow. And think of it as just saying how much money's in the bank. You get your sales, make the money go up. You pay your expenses, the money goes down. You've got to make sure that whatever you start with is then sufficient to take you through the period you're looking at so you don't go negative and incur bank charges or worse, having the business shut down.
Right. So are these the statements that a bank or a financial institution would want to see?
Absolutely. And most of your gatekeepers, if they want to know what your financial statements are, the three things they're going to want are the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow. And you need all three to get an accurate picture of what's going on in that business. You can't just use one of the three or parts of any of those. And they're all interrelated. You make a change in one area, it ripples over to the other statements. But those are the three primary ones that are used to really say what is the financial status of your business.
Right. Well, you know, banks never really truly tell the business owner why they did get that loan.
Right.
I'm just curious, and both of you can respond to this. What do banks usually say about small businesses, especially startups, when they come in?
Right.
You want, and either one of you can.
Well, we found that most of the startup businesses won't qualify for a bank loan. So if someone is just starting a business, until they have a track record, they're not necessarily going to qualify for a loan. So the funds that they're going to need to get their business underway primarily are going to come from family and friends. We have some information that would say over 80% of those funds are going to come from family and friends. A modest amount, but a growing amount, is going to come from crowdfunding. That's probably the next largest of the funding sources. And then less than 1% of the funds is coming from angel or
angel
venture
investors.
capitalists.
Right.
Okay.
So what we really encourage them to do is a lot of bootstrapping, but also look for the funds through other sources than a bank. At the same time, establish bank relationships. Have that banking relationship through your business accounts at a bank, and regularly have interaction with that business banker so that as your business grows and you have that track record of success, you will be more attractive to the banker.
To the bank, okay, all right.
What you will find in most cases as you go through this and you go into a gatekeeper, they're going to look at a number of key things so they make a decision on what your business is like.
Okay.
They will look for things like your break-even point that says how much sales do you have to make before all of your fixed and variable expenses are covered and you start to make a profit. So that's one key thing that you will get in any review of your business. The second one is they will look at standardized financial ratios that will look at things like, do you have enough liquid assets to cover your expected liabilities? Do you have enough cash on hand to pay the bills that are coming down in the future? Do you have enough revenue coming in to handle the amount of debt that you're asking for?
Okay.
Those are all critical ratios that are industry standards, and your gatekeeper will look at those and make a decision based on just those numbers in many cases.
Right. Joe, I want to go back to you. Earlier, we talked about the balance sheet, the P&L,
Right.
profit and loss, and the cash flow statement.
Right.
How do I actually use those
Right.
statements to run my business?
Well, if you think about it, the most important way you use it is you set up a financial model based on those statements, and you can model what your business is doing. So as you make changes and make proposed changes to your business, I want to hire somebody else, I want to open up a new branch, I want to introduce a new product line, I can model that in that financial model and use that to find out what are the impact of my decisions. So I can now start using these financial statements for financial planning, to moving forward based on the data that we found from the initial statements.
Okay.
So it's critical to test these things out on paper before you invest a whole lot of your time and money and then say, gee, did I make a profit or not?
Right. So can you give some examples of financial models a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, it can be as simple as our SCORE has a spreadsheet that we use that walks you through and creates the financial models for you. And it's available on SCORE.org's website.
How much do we have to pay?
Zero. Everything,
Really?
SCORE's,
It's free?
everything, material's free. Okay? It's a good four-letter word for our small businesses. But what happens on that is you can use that to model your projections on what you think will be happening to your business, and then make decisions. You can test that model and make decisions that have more of a basis of fact than just a gut reaction on what should I do.
Right, right.
So that'd be one example. Another one would be looking at that model to look at your cash flow. When I started off, I had my boss said, well, your wife is working, so therefore I'm not going to pay you this week because I'm short on cash. Now that didn't instill a whole lot of confidence in me, all right? But that was a matter of he didn't have a good handle on cash flow. So if you have to make sure you have the cash in the bank to make payroll, and if you don't, your organization will suffer. So if I had my model and I'm laying that out, I'm going to have a very clear understanding of what my cash needs are, and do I have enough resources to cover that?
How many years should it take, or should a business owner become concerned if they're not making a profit? Is there a model that tells you that by this time you should be making a profit, or you know?
Sure. There are a lot of golden rules out there that say you don't have to make a profit for 2 years and that's okay, and then after that those are very generalist statements that don't apply to everybody.
Okay.
Individual situations vary. If you have an investment that's very small on capital investment, let's say you're a consulting company, you should be profitable in year 1. If you are a manufacturing plant, it may be 5 years before you become profitable enough to pay back that large investment. So it really does depend on what the specifics of the business are. And
So one shoe doesn't fit.
Exactly.
It doesn't fit
And my recommendation when any of these questions come up is to talk to your SCORE counselor and get an answer that seems to make more sense for what your situation is, as opposed to going by the general rules.
Well, you just brought up another a point, and I think we have enough time to answer this. The SCORE counselor, what can a small business person expect from that SCORE counselor?
Really, you can expect to have someone who'd almost function like a member of your board of directors. This is someone who is going to challenge you with questions, review your business plan with you, really kind of help keep you on track as you go through the key steps that we've talked about in business and financial planning. So we're challenging the assumptions that they have, giving them homework, so to speak, to validate those assumptions before each session, and working with them to, in an encouraging manner, to fulfill their dream. But it's a little like going to school in a sense that we're tutoring, but at the same time we're mentoring and we're coaching and giving them the thoughts and the questions to help them get through the process.
So a person can just come into the SCORE office, and what is the process? They just sign a application? Do they have to fill out an application?
We really encourage people to go to score.org.
Okay.
And online you can look at the biographies of our mentors. We have locally 60 mentors in the Virginia district and in Maryland with a lot of depth of background. We have over 10,000 mentors nationally.
Wow.
So we do it a couple of different ways. We encourage people to go into score.org, find a mentor or identify a business problem, and we'll assign a local mentor to you. We encourage them to go through the site to see the wealth of information that is available. And they have access to us as much or as little as they want. So a business that may need a lot more hand-holding as they're emerging, we're there for them to meet with them weekly or as frequently as makes sense to help them get their business up and running. After they're up and running, or if it's an existing business, we have people that come back just kind of like taking your car in for a tune-up. Look at my annual plan. Tell me how I'm doing and what am I missing. So it's really that level of counseling, from a lot of hand-holding to as much as you need.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming in. This has been really great, and I want to ask you if you'd come back and share with us more, because I can tell you've got a lot to share. So thank you so much. It's
My
been a
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the most important things you can do for your business is to have a winning business plan at your fingertips at all times. It is really the lifeblood that will determine the success or failure of your business. You have heard the great advice that the experts have given to you, so help is only a phone call away. Thank you for watching Rock Your Block, and we will see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.